Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to review the final project assignment for this class, which is the summary response and rhetorical analysis of a commencement speech. In this video I'm reviewing part 2 of the final assignment project. Now part 2 assumes that you've already completed your summary response and you've perhaps received some feedback, or that you are set on working on part 2, which is the rhetorical analysis of your selected commencement speech. Remember that you are working off the speech you've selected from this list. Now let's go back to the assignment. So this is rhetorical analysis, and our course textbook has a section on rhetorical analysis, which I hope you would read. I also have materials on rhetorical analysis which I've posted, which I hope you would also read. So what are you doing for part 2? Well, in essence, you're taking a look at the speech that you've selected. You are perhaps going to reread the transcript, your annotations on the transcript, and you are going to analyze how the speaker uses ethos, logos, and pathos. In other words, you are going to analyze how the speaker used the rhetorical modes of persuasion in order to convince the audience, which is the students who are graduating. You're not just going to go around analyzing ethos, logos, and pathos. You're going to do so according to the specifications I've given. I repeat, according to the specifications I've given for this assignment. So you would remember that in part 1 you had to do a summary and a response, and your summary was supposed to be brief and your response too was limited to 1 page, or if you want to go beyond that, that's up to you. But I expect that you would use what you've learned from summarizing and responding, put that into consideration as you write a rhetorical analysis. You need to understand what a rhetorical analysis means and what happens when you engage in rhetorical analysis. So content that we examine during the week this assignment is issued would be very helpful. The materials, the readings we completed, so you understand what happens when you do a rhetorical analysis. Now in the week where we are covering final project activities, I've also done a rhetorical analysis on David Foster Wallace's Kenyon commencement address, which was delivered in 2005. So you can watch my review of the analysis, the rhetorical analysis of this speech, and you don't need to watch the summary. But for the purpose of this class, you want to take notes of what I'm asking you to do in part 2. And don't get carried away by continuing the summary, because summary is already done with, as well as the response. So you're going to focus on the specifications, as I've mentioned. So in the assignment specification, this is what you're doing. Of course, I expect that you create an engaging hook. I also expect that you will focus on analyzing at least 2 external sources that speak to the material of your selected speaker's concerns, interests, or maybe arguments they gave in the video. Now you also want to capture the commencement speaker's rhetorical situation. Every speaker has a rhetorical situation to which they respond. View my presentation on persuasion to understand what I'm talking about, rhetorical situation. Next, you want to talk about the speaker's mode of persuasion. So how does the author, the speaker, establish his or her arguments in the speech? What do they use in terms of tone and persona? What rhetorical mode of persuasion? Was it ethos? Was it pathos? Was it logos? How does the speaker anticipate objections, or perhaps concerns of the audience in the speech? And lastly, you want to evaluate your closing remarks, at least an argument made by the speaker. And you can use your personal observation plus evidence that you have from reading the speech to describe what the author achieves or fails to achieve in their speech. Once again, you can look at my sample analysis as a module, if that helps. It's a different speech, I must say, so don't get carried away. Now, what am I expecting from you? You want to pay attention to this, especially when you work on the final draft. So I expect that you are going to adhere to the specifications given on this paper, the way you write your paragraph. I want to see you use summary and quotes from the speech. I want to also note that you abide by the formatting instructions. This is going to be double-spaced. You're not going to turn this in as a PDF or Apple page. I'm also expecting to see at least a minimum of 3 works-cited sources on the assignment you turn in. That is the final draft. Then you want to keep in mind that part 2 is different from part 1. However, when you turn in your final draft, you're going to turn in part 1 and part 2 in one document. You're not going to separate them, but part 1 and part 2 will be turned in one document. I repeat, in one document. So when you get feedback on part 1, I expect that you include it in your final draft for part 2, which will be submitted together. Now, this is worth a lot of points, and you want to make sure you take care of this. This would mean that the final revised summary and response essay plus rhetorical analysis part will lead to a total of 8 pages, or 8 pages and a half. That's the minimum page limit. You want to pay attention to when it's due. You have to turn in your first draft. That is for part 2. This is different from part 1. So you turn in the first draft for part 2, and I need to see an outline for that. So again, an outline would be submitted for this, and I need to see it when you turn in your draft for first draft for part 2. Then the final draft is due on the 14th, and once you do that, that will be it for this class. You're totally done. Once again, remember that part 2 is different from part 1. Part 2 is a continuation in that you are doing a rhetorical analysis. You're going more in depth to analyze and comment on the author's or the speaker's speech. So once you are able to, I highly recommend that when you are engaging in rhetorical analysis, you want to make use of the script. The transcript will be very helpful. The transcript gives you more information. You can copy and paste easily than the video, in which you just have to follow the timestamp. So I highly suggest you use the transcript when you are working on the part 2 for this assignment. So this concludes my review for part 2, which is the rhetorical analysis for commencement speech. And make sure that when you're working on your part 2, you make good use of annotations that you've taken if you decide to print out your commencement speech. Otherwise, I say that you make good notes of the timestamp if you're going to focus on the video. I hope all of this was helpful. Thanks for watching.